So, dude, right, this was an amazing experience. It is going to be a long one, I'm not going to lie, but I have to share it because it was, to me, absolutely beautiful. To anyone who was watching, it would be like, what is she talking about? But I'm like, no, it was really, really cool. Okay, so I didn't realize until having gone through this absolutely amazing experience today how much yesterday was a significant factor in what happened today. So I have a couple of pictures and they're going to be like, what the heck are you talking about? Because they're all so incredibly like just random, just random signs around the place, right? But I have to share them with you. So what happened, right? Got up this morning, had my shower, thought, oh, I know, I'd already planned to in a way, but I thought I'd go out to a particular place that I sometimes go shopping. I've recently moved where I am, and I thought I'll try that shopping centre up that place. So I went up there, and I already knew it was special. It was a special day because as I'd gotten onto the bus and as I'd seen a few road signs and stuff, it was like they were all messaging to me, yeah, I'm here with you. I'm here with you is the person that I often think of in relation to the name, the vibratory energy of the words that go into this shopping place, right? Oh, I can't stop smiling. So anyway, so I got off the bus and there were a few signs that were confirmed, yeah, it's actually you, because there are certain objects that contain names that work around the places that this person either came from or frequents, or they were all basically linked to him. So I was like, oh, this is so cute. You're here. This is lovely, right? So I did my shopping and oh my gosh, this is such a long story, but yeah, I did my shopping. I went into, oh, I don't know how they pronounce it here, Primark. I went in there. I went into a hair shop. I went into a few perfume shops. And again, this may seem mundane, but this is why the story is so beautiful. So no, I went into Asda first. That's what happened. And now the thing is, because it was such an incredibly open day in terms of reception, I'd had no idea why I was going to Asda. I just knew, right? You walk into Asda, it was literally like a flipping Morpheus from Matrix moment, right? Where it was like in my ears, it was like going to Asda, and I'm like, but I've nothing to get in Asda. It's like just going to Asda. So I went into Asda, walked along the George aisles with the clothing, right? And I walked one aisle and I thought, well, I'm obviously not meant to be here. Excuse me. Oh, it's extremely gassy. Ew. But anyway, right? So I walked up one aisle and then I was like, I'm leaving this place. And it's like, no, you walk every aisle. Walk up and down in a zigzag along each aisle. And I'm like, but I have nothing to purchase here. What are you doing? So I got to like a reduced section, which is like, I'm usually like a bee. I'm like, straight to reduced first, right? But anyway, saw a coat and I thought, oh, I quite like that. I'll get that. And it was kind of like a kind of khaki green. And there was one extra large and it was way too large. But then there was one large and I thought, well, I can wear like a jumper under that, thinking that it was a regular large, but it was huge. So I tried to zip it up and it wouldn't zip up. And I tried several times and it wouldn't zip up. And then I saw some wording. I don't know on what that wording was, but it was saying, yeah, tried and tried again, and it still didn't work. And I'm like, okay, clearly I'm not meant to get this coat, but this is meant to educate me in some way as to why I'm actually here, right? So I thought, well, obviously that coat's not meant for me. Left that up on the hangers. Continued to walk the aisles, knowing that I needn't be in the clothing aisle, right? But then I got to the electronics aisle, and my keyboard recently has like gone completely off whack, right? So I thought, oh, I'll get a new keyboard. Well, I didn't think that. It was like, just get a keyboard. I'm like, okay, cool, I'll get a keyboard then. And then it was like, but I like this whole keyboard and wireless mouse thing. Like, I like the set. It's like, no. You get a wireless keyboard and you get a wired mouse. And I'm like, oh, really? So I did that anyway. Like, I was literally in and out of Asda's within 5 minutes. But this was the conversation that was going on in my, I don't even know how to put it, because like to say it was in my ears is to make it sound as though I'm mad, but it really was a signal of communication, right? So I picked up the keyboard, picked up the mouse. I was walking along the housewares aisle, and then I saw like these two cups. So they were in different colours, and I thought, yeah, I could do with a couple of mugs actually. They were mugs rather than cups. Sorry. So I picked one, and it was like, no, take both. So I was like, okay, cool. I hadn't bought a basket. This is how much I was not going to be in Asda today, right? So I'm like, okay, keyboard, mouse, mugs, right? And then it was like, oh, I like that bowl little platter thing, right? And then my eyes shifted along and found the same platter in a different colour. I was like, that's the one. I like that, right? So I picked that up. And then, oh, in the clothing aisle, that was it. Before I'd done that, in the clothing aisle, there was this one dressing gown, and I like really fluffy, cozy dressing gowns, right? And obviously it's not the height of winter, so the likelihood of them being available is like second to none. But It happened. There was one, right? It wasn't even hanging up. It was draped across one of them, one of the lingerie kind of aisles. It wasn't even meant to be where it was, but I just picked it up. I didn't even look at the size. I just picked it up. I was like, fine, I'll get the dressing gown as well, right? No, I didn't concern myself with any labels or any rationality as to why I was getting these things, right? I just got them, right? So I got to the checkout, got my stuff sorted. Oh, and I got three bras. No, two bras, maybe it is. And a scarf, right? Now, the bras were like cream and green. Not my usual colours, but like it's not like anyone's going to see them. But then there was this scarf that was like reduced as well, and I was like, I like that colour, right? But this scarf is like proper, like thermal scarf. But it was like, yep, get this is when I'm doing this. This is the voice, right? It's saying, yep, get the scarf. But why? It's like, just get the damn scarf. I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm literally like lugging myself to the checkout, right? Paid for the stuff. Went fine, and then I thought, oh my god, I'm gonna have to walk to Primark now with this stuff, because that was my goal. I knew, like, in terms of instruction, Primark is the place to go, particularly as it's at the center, the hub of this place that links me to him, right? So I'm like, okay, cool, I'll go into Primark. Went into Primark, didn't see anything that I particularly liked, but I still picked stuff up, right? So what did I pick up? That was it. I walked into Primark, went into the ladies section, and it was like, okay, I don't see anything here that is to my taste or liking, but you know, I'm here. Tell me what it is that I'm meant to do. And I got touch the clothes. I'm like, okay, this is getting weird. Like, okay, fine. So these were clothes that were just not, they're just not me, but it doesn't mean that they're horrible or anything. It just wasn't my like aesthetically pleasing thing, whatever. So I saw something that was like a kind of a jumper with a bit of lace at the bottom of it. And I don't know why I was just drawn to this lace. And it was like, this is like 1794 or something. This is like proper French lace. Or there's another, is it scantily lace or something? Anyway, lace was a big thing. And I remember one of my grandmothers used to mention the linen cupboard a lot. And I often found myself connected to her in some way through linen. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to touch this lace, right? Oh my God, right? So I touched the lace, and I swear to God, it was like the clothes were talking to me. This is mad, right? So I was like, what the hell is going on here? And it was like he was speaking to me through the lace. Now, this is going to sound crazy. I absolutely understand that. But when there is a vibratory link, particularly with the objective numbers that go with it, and because I calculate so much, we're literally tuning into each other as to what was being said. And so he was, I shan't go into what was said. It was absolutely beautiful. He sent such loving messages to me, like, you know, I love you, essentially, and this is why this happened, this is why that happened, yada, yada, yada. So I thought, because it was him, I was like, oh my God, you're so adorable, I love you, you're amazing, you're this, you're that. Anyway, so I was beaming through Primark, everyone else looking miserable as, but I was like, oh my God, the world's so amazing, right? So anyway, then I got into the shoe section. This was after he'd spoken to me through the clothes, and he'd sent me towards the shoe section, right? So I'm like, okay, I have no intention of getting any of these shoes, but okay. So I went to like these kind of like UGG-looking shoes, and they only had like size 7s, which is above my size kind of thing. But then I realised that the 7 was telling me that this is a crossover now, because you've got the divisor, as it were, you're at the petition. And so I was like, oh, this is platform work. Now, this is what I thought. Didn't even think about it after that until. So I picked up these shoes because they were the first reminder of him. And I was like, oh my God, this is like back in the day when we had. So I was like, sorry, I'll pick up the shoes, right? And he's like, cool, perfect. Picked up shoes, got to the checkout, and there was a travel bag, like a foldable bag, picked that up as well. Oh, and whilst I was walking around Primark, I also picked up a rucksack, a travel bag rucksack as well. So I'm like, okay, as I'm at the checkout, I'm like, there's a lot of travel mention here. Okay, I see now. So we're at the Vale. Someone's coming through, there's like air traffic, whatever's going on here. Particularly as it linked to him, it was certainly air traffic control, right? So I'm like, this is cool. Got my stuff. At the checkout, the woman says to me, as she takes these kind of like inflated, you know, like those kind of protective bags that are inside stuff to keep the shape of them. They're full of air, basically. She's like, would you like me to remove this bag? I said, yes, please. And there were 2 of them. So I'm like, okay, it's only now I'm looking back, I realise what that meant, but hey. Anyway, so I was like, I'm feeling lighter. Now, over the last couple of days, I must say, my body has felt so much more supple in comparison to how it has been for literally the last few years. Like, I literally would wake up with aches and pains, and it would take me a couple of hours to kind of get into the flow of being in a body. It was quite painful, actually. But the last few days, it's like, oh my God, I've like literally got spring in my step, literally spring, change of seasons. But anyway, right? So got all that stuff, went into Costa, got myself a hot chocolate, which I've not had in many, many years, and sat outside, and then I was smoking a cigarette. I sat down, started my cigarette, and it was like, no, the wind's blowing in my face and it's going to make me smell of smoke. So I know, I'll swap sides. So I pulled my bags from the other side and swapped sides. And the moment I swapped sides, there was this sign of the supermarket, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, because then when I saw the sign of the supermarket, I remembered the sign that I'd been looking at previous to that. And it was like, this is mad, dude, right? Basically what happened was I could see where the crossover had taken place, where it was a karmic exchange, i.e. people who had been in some way interconnected, regardless of how they felt about it now, were switching places karmically. And I was like, this is cool. She'd gotten the crappy, shitty end of this karma, right? And he'd had the high life, but now they were switching over. And she was effectively, or I was seeing through her, whichever way it worked, we were seeing through each other. It was like, I was literally physically facilitating this switch whilst she was enjoying the experience of having that uplift, of having that ascension. And part of that had come with my lack of that scarcity mentality, where it was like, sorry, I'm just getting it anyway. I'm just going to get it anyway. Sorry. It doesn't matter what money's there. I'm just going to get it. Because there's not money there. But anyway, right. So anyways, did that, got on the bus. Oh my gosh, the bus back was amazing, right? So basically I had on, must say before I start, well, I've already started, but when I was saying about yesterday was certainly a factor in what happened today, I picked this back up yesterday, right? Now, this is a very, very old fashioned, not necessarily old in terms of when it was purchased, but it was purchased a few years ago. But I used it as a way of using it as a dictaphone, which is what it is essentially. But I also use it as an MP3 player now. But I hadn't done that in like years, right? Because I stopped using my phone for some time. Like modern technology, it's not because I was in any way afraid of it. It's just like, it was just too noisy. There's too much consciousness sharing amongst that kind of stuff. So it was like, I knocked myself off it pre-COVID. And so by the time COVID had come, I didn't have the anxiety that other people had, because it was like, I'd switched off to the world already at that stage anyway. But anyway, so it came back to me yesterday, and I downloaded a few songs, put them on my MP3 player, and was walking along the streets feeling so incredibly happy, right? So let me just go back to yesterday. No, maybe I won't go back to yesterday. So I'm on the bus with this thing, right? Music in my ears, chilling out with a wired headphones. I'm cool, right? And as these songs were playing, it was like this woman who had crossed over karmically was now going back to that fork in the road where she had met the man who was the one, but she'd gotten tied up with the one who turned out to be not the one, but the one that she certainly would never go back to, kind of thing. And on the bus, I was listening to these songs, and then I'll send you the playlist in a bit. But oh my gosh, I could feel her release, and my smile was huge. And then some of the songs that were coming on, I could like see them meeting, as in these two people who were meant for each other, but just hadn't taken the opportunity when they'd shared the same earth. And so clearly in what is called spirit, they were coming back together. They'd chosen each other, right? And the moment I got that kind of epiphany in me, all of a sudden this beautiful love song came on. Or maybe it wouldn't be beautiful if it hadn't have happened with that memory. But as the song came on, like the bus stopped, because it does that, it stops, right? And I swear to God, it was like the United Nations got on the bus, right? Every person who got on that bus, and there must have been at least 12, were of a different nationality, with different complexion, like different age, everything. And it was like I was witnessing this woman's like revival, like her DNA, her people were coming on this bus with her, right? And as I looked at the bus doors, because I was like amazed that this was happening, as I was looked at the bus doors, there was this, there were a couple of people who had like, what do you call it? Like walking sticks and crutches and stuff. Now I have nothing, like, if it wasn't in the context of what I'd experienced, I wouldn't have noticed it as much. But it was like she was leaving them behind. It was like spiritually, she was getting on the bus with her people and leaving behind the crutches, the instability, the insecurity, the pains of what she'd experienced with this man who was trying to follow her spiritually. Meant to add, actually, as I was coming back from Primark before I got on the bus, there was this I assume he was homeless because he had like a sleeping bag on the floor and was sat there with his stuff, whatever. Don't want to be presumptuous, but like, you know, it kind of looked like he was. And he shouts out like with a really strong Jamaican accent. Now, this is in the middle of like a somewhat well, I would say predominantly white area, right, in England, in London, but this guy did not look in any way. Now, I know you shouldn't be like, you shouldn't, what's the word? You shouldn't assume, you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, that's it. But this guy did not look like the accent that came out of him. But I think I was the only one who heard the accent. And he goes, fuck you, gal. And I was like, what the fuck? But no one else noticed. So I'm like, oh, it's him. She's rejected him from that side on the way back. And he's like, you, because he's now in a child. Because basically when you make your choices on that side, and you say no, 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 the thing or person that you're saying no, no, no to goes further and further back. But they don't just go back in time. Depending upon their answers in response or their answers when asked if they would take you, they become less and less in the view of the one who's saying no. So everything that the one who's saying no said no to kind of becomes a collective, i.e. she also said no to no children. And so that was probably the second strongest no out of all of the no's that she said, him as in the partner that she'd had the children with being the first. And so he became the children. It's like there's this kind of like, this kind of devolution of things that become people or vice versa. That's like, okay, if you don't want that, then it's going to become a lesser version of it, depending upon what your focus is on. So if it's something that's like, I don't want that big car, then it will become a smaller car or a bicycle. But if it's a person and it's like, I don't want him because of this, basically they will embody the reason as well. So she didn't want him, so he became a child. So the him being homeless as a white man, in my view, was basically signing to me saying, this is what's happened. And I'm like, oh, okay, anyway. So anyway, on the bus, saw the multinational like ensemble get on the bus. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so cool. Saw the, oh, I know crippled's probably not the right word, but I'm thinking of the Five of Pentacles as I'm saying it. They'd been rejected out in the cold. But then as the bus doors closed, because I was so aware of the signs at this stage, I was looking for them. Wasn't the place called Angel Hill? I was like, oh, that's so beautiful. And as that's happening, the song, You Are My Angel, not You Are My Angel, Angel of Mine came on, right? And I was like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. They're meeting up. So him and her, the two that had chosen each other, not the one who was homeless now, but the two that had chosen each other were literally ascending with the music that was in my ears. So I was literally hearing a conversation between them as they were coming back together. And I was like, oh my God, this is so beautiful, right? So anyway, throughout these songs, I told you I'll send you the playlist, but throughout these songs, basically, they came together and they were like, yeah, I chose you. And he's like, I chose you. Because they don't see each other until literally the very end, until everyone is sure about what it is that's happening, right? And then I also got an explanation of how she felt when she thought it was love with the one who was now made homeless, and how he being with her had made her feel. And then I got a bit of his story, as in the guy she'd actually chosen, as he was afraid of how powerful and potent being with her felt. And it kind of was contrary to the image that pretty much everyone else had of him, because he's a bit of a bad boy, but he's like a really gorgeous bad boy. But anyway, very much like my man, which is why I suppose it's why it's happened, because there are kind of like, I suppose it's consciousness again, but it's like an alignment. So basically, if there is a body that vibrates with another body that matches the spiritual connection, when there is full alignment, then there's no bridge. That is the bridge. The love is the bridge. And so it was a spiritual moving through me to my version of him. But imagine if I'm a lower version of the woman who just ascended, like up and down, as above, so below, get it together. And it was like, oh, this is so beautiful. So I'm like beaming at this stage. I'm like, oh my God, this is so amazing, right? So anyway, so I get home and I unpack my stuff, and I'm like, I'm starting to get like still playing songs in my ears, but it was like she started speaking to me directly, and she was saying like, what you got from that song where you heard, the senses are mixed up, but she was saying, you saw my loneliness, my desolation, and I don't want you to have that. I only ever really wanted to be boss of my own life. That was my wish. That was my literally my dying wish. I want to be boss of my own life, right? And I was like, yeah, I could totally get that. But then it explained why I had the insecurities. Perhaps insecurities aren't the right word, but I got the residuals of what it was that she experienced, which is probably what brought us back together, in that we had shared emotions, we had shared senses of lack. But me breaking through what was a barrier of financial scarcity had freed her to express herself more and therefore become boss of her own life, which is why I'd gotten to witness this ascension and why she'd joined eventually the man that she perhaps didn't feel that she was deserving of, but had been waiting for her, which was absolutely amazing. And he'd be waiting for her to be the boss of her own life and say no, 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 no to everything that was the other guy, really. So anyway, so I thought, oh my God, this is so cool. This is really beautiful. Unpack my stuff. And then it was like, this is starting to make sense now. Yesterday, I needed to go and get some skin cream, right? So I'm usually loyal to the same brand, not because it's the brand, just the stuff that works for me. I don't really like to mess with my skin, right? But I went to find a chemist and went into the shopping centre nearer to me. And the chemist was closed. I was like, oh, fine, whatever, I'll look somewhere else because I was really low on this cream, right? And I went into Rituals, and I'm like, I can't afford this, right? Now, to be fair, I hadn't looked at my bank account, but it's like, this is not my shop. I'm proper like, the cream that I get is like, maybe a tenner at the most, and it will last me all month, right? Like that's all body, all month. But I thought, oh, sorry, I'm going to go in this shop. Looked in there, and my eyes were instantly drawn to what I eventually got anyway. The shop assistant did try to sway me in another direction for another scent, but I was like, no, that's the one that I want. And I picked it up, smelled it, and it was like, okay, that's two senses that's telling me absolutely that's what you want. Your eyes saw it first, you smelled it, you were just literally like floated up when you smelled it, that's yours. So I went to pay for it and it was like 28. I thought, okay, cool. But I didn't really, now to be fair, I actually didn't think, oh, 28.50. It was like, no, this is yours, get it. So I just was like, cool, I'm just gonna get it. Like I'll live off soup for the rest of the month, but I'll get it. So I got it. And yeah, there was more to that story. But anyway, that's the main part because I'll show you a picture of what the cream is, right? So anyway, got back, packed my stuff, unpacked my stuff, and I pulled out the dressing gown. And I was like, oh my freaking God. Because the dressing gown, when I picked it up, even though I knew it was fluffy, that was the only prerequisite. It was fluffy, and therefore I got it. But I didn't look at like what the dressing gown was like. Pulled it out and it was like, it's a full-length dressing gown. And I'm like, oh my God, this is a rarity. This is like gold. Because that's exactly what I go for. I want a long, cozy, just a beautifully fluffy dressing gown. But the only time I've ever had that, right, was when my grandmother was in hospital and she died in 2013. And when it came to like whatever she'd left, like a few days after she died, I flew in for her funeral, and I asked, can I have her Bible and her dressing gown? And they were given to me. And the dressing gown is the only one I've ever had that was full length and completely fluffy. So I was like, oh my God, that's beautiful. This is no coincidence, right? Because those signs that I was speaking of when I was sat across the way outside Costa and I switched sides, the sign that I had been looking at prior to the sign that I realized she's getting her wish now, she's getting what it is that she deserved, right, was the food that my grandmother was most famed for cooking, and she was an amazing cook when it came to roti and dal. And this place was called, didn't see the rest of it, I just saw roti, and I was like, okay, this is starting to make amazing sense to me, right? So the dressing gown went into the wardrobe, and I was like, the scarf, this still doesn't explain the scarf. And then it was like, Oh my gosh, the poem that I'd written, I think it's called, I don't know which number of The Exorcist, because there are a few, I just haven't published them. But The Exorcist, and it was about the kid, and it was how the kid was basically possessed by the man who was haunting this woman through the child. And no, it wasn't. That's not even the poem. There was another one, a medium poem, as in mediumship, about a woman who had basically deleted her son when she was given the option on that side. As what do you want to walk back into? Do you want this? No. Do you want this? No. And as exactly what I was saying earlier, it reduced and reduced and reduced until it was no more, but it had become something else. And it was like, it's the flipping scarf. It makes sense. The scarf is, because I'd animated that. I'd basically put that in images in the video that I'd created through it. And it was like, that's the fucking scarf. I'm going to have to show you the scarf. 1 second. Sorry. So here's the scarf, right? Look at that, right? But it's green, right? Whereas the scarf that she had in the video was green, and then it turned red for her. But this is her, as in my grandma, saying, it's okay because you're red now. But look at that. 7. Another 7. So it was, oh, must add as well, 14. So it was she was basically saying that the inversion that comes with karma, which is the 7, the chariot card, we've now switched places, as in he is gone and it's you and I now who are at the reins of this chariot. The 14 was her crossing the river, that consciousness that I was speaking of in temperance, right? So anyway, so that happened. But check this out, right? So I unpacked the rest of the stuff and the cups. Let me just get that. Bear in mind, the sign that I'm about to send you that I'd been looking at while sat at the bus stop features 2 cups as far as I'm concerned. So it's all about love. It's all about meeting again with your circle of life. Right, 1 second. So one of the cups I'm drinking out of now, but check this out, right? What? Right? So that's them. They're being bosses of their lives. And she's saying to me, no, it's you and me. That's us. We're 2 women. We're 2 women with our pink being the bosses. But I was like, it's only one side. She's like, no, turn it around. Check it out all the way around. I was like, oh my God, you are actually a boss. But there was more, right? So I was like, oh my God, I'm so glad you have gotten to be who you wanted to be, with who you deserve to be. Because there was this man who, prior to her dying, I didn't get to meet him, but I'd watched them dance at a wedding. This was like I don't know if it was a few months or a couple of years maybe before she died, but it was one of the last times I'd seen her. And they were dancing, and I remember looking at them thinking, that is so beautiful. There's such love there. It was literally golden. I could see just gold around them. And I never got to speak to her about him, and I never met that man again. But I imagined that they had in some way later in life found each other. I always got that impression that there was pure love between them, right? But anyway, no one ever mentioned him again. So I was like, okay, clearly, I don't know what that was, but it looked love to me. Anyway, so in addition, that platter that I'd gotten, I was pulling off the labels of the stuff, preparing to wash them. And the platter had said grey speckled. And I was like, why is that ringing a bell? And I was like, the grey speckled hen. Because I was thinking of the hen who was like, do you want to make bread with me? Do you want to make bread with me? And everyone's like, no, don't want to make bread. And then all of a sudden everyone's starving. And she's like, you're not having my bread. And she's saying, that's you and me. You worked your backside off for this thing. And no one wanted to do it with you because it went completely against the norm. It went completely against what was considered the acceptable conditions and standards of being a medium or a psychic. And this is why I don't demonstrate, because when we look at performance, and I'm not saying that all mediums perform, but what I am saying is that when you're doing it on demand, that certainly does call to a level of performance. And it's not really fair to those that you are conveying that message to. Again, it's not against mediumship in any way, shape or form. I'm just giving my example as to how I experience it. It does take a damn long time because it's life. It's much like a woman who's been pregnant, having a baby and expecting to lose weight within a week. You have to endure, you have to experience at least the same amount of time that it took for you to get into that condition, if that's the word for it, much like death. And part of demonstrating, another reason why I don't, is because, as you probably realised from this story, is it starts from the end. And so when we speak people back into a past that they're not necessarily reflecting on, because you've got karmic circles going in opposing directions, you can have the voice of the partner, depending upon what form that partner takes. It could be a child, it could be a parent, it could be an old friend, whatever their karmic connection or tie is. You can have them giving you the story that places the person that they're hoping to retrieve and bring back to them. You are essentially facilitating a capture or recapture. And that's why starting at the end is the only real way to go, because then you get the real people standing for their own stories. And that fork in the road that I experienced today and yesterday, and a couple of days ago, but that's another thing I'll go into as well, was her saying, okay, that is what I experienced, but like, I don't want that. And she was saying to me, like, these karmic ties that we speak of and these cycles, she was like, no, it's not. It just means that we sit as a circle, but it doesn't mean that those players in that circle don't change. It's not a cycle, it is a circle, my inner circle. I choose to have this person sitting across from me. I choose to have the diners at my table. The idea of not being able to break a cycle is created by those who want to perpetuate a cycle of punishment. And it's like, no, it doesn't work like that. Then, after the speckled hen thing, I had a cup of coffee in my new The Boss cup, and I put a spoon down, and it was like, there's your message, Chanel. And I was like, the spoon? The poem, The Spoons. And that's what she was telling me. That she was saying that's what karma is. Essentially, what you've just gone through about speaking about objects basically changing from one state and stage to another is me seeing through my eyes the experience that I had and converting that experience into something that is of benefit for all of us. And so that when I return and it becomes a modernized version, I am aware in my consciousness of the pathway that leads to my times of happiness and peace and away from that which it once represented for me. And so you, Chanel, and your emotions work as a converting point for me in that there are certain things that were somewhat traumatic for me, but you see them as places, areas, and objects of love, and you meet your love in that place. And in you doing that, it means that I can jump towards that love and then discard where it wasn't. So I know it probably sounds a bit jumbled, but it was an amazing experience, absolutely amazing. So I'm going to send you the photos. I'll put them at the end of this thing so that you can get an idea as to what it was that I was speaking about. Absolutely mundane signs have no, they have no relevance in a regular person's photo gallery, but it will make sense to you.